What advice would you give to someone experiencing a mental health crisis and in need of help?
That's a really great question, and sometimes it's hard to answer because I feel like every individual obviously seeks support or doesn't seek support differently. And in my case, I feel like the best advice I could give someone is to
Hello, welcome to Make Today Well Lived, the podcast. I'm Allie Norman Franks. I'm Beverly Hills High School Wellness Counselor, and I'm the founder of the NormanAid Wellness Center. And I'm here with our awesome peer counselors. And we're going to explore how to make each day well lived while bringing to light the most relevant topics in today's teen and high school life. Every third Wellness Wednesday, we'll be featuring different themes and guest speakers together with KBEV and our monthly aid sponsor, Michael J. LeBeau. We want to give a big thank you to Beverly Hills High School PTSA, as well as Beverly Vista Middle School PTA for funding KBEV to be able to purchase all the equipment needed to make this podcast. Our motto for this month is, we all have bad days. It's okay to seek support. To help us understand why and how to seek support, we've invited 3 top mental health experts onto our show: Candace Yoder, Ben Greiner, and Norman alum Brittany Bronson. And they're going to talk with our peer counselors, Kate and Nick. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and this episode will discuss suicide prevention as well as warning signs. As this is a sensitive topic, we're providing our listeners with a trigger warning.
Hello, I'm Kate, and I'm a junior at Beverly Hills High School. Today's show is about seeking support. I'm so honored to co-host our second episode and to virtually meet you all. My first question is for each of you. Can you share with us your personal stories and motivation behind your advocacy?
My name is Candace Yoder. I have a nonprofit in teen suicide prevention and awareness. It started with my brother-in-law's only son dying by suicide when he was 18, which is kind of what started our foundation. But suicide has touched my life from a very young age. I had one affect me in 2nd grade, one affect me in my teen years, then my brother-in-law's son, and then my daughter had a near fatal suicide attempt. So it's something I'm very passionate about. And to get there, I think wellness and mental health is what's most important on teens' agendas.
My name is Ben Greiner, and I am a founder of talkaboutdepression.org, which is a nonprofit organization. And the story behind the organization is I had a close experience with my best friend who almost attempted suicide. And that drove me to really want to speak about the topic. And I'm really passionate about discovering different conversations around how we can prevent these situations from coming up, and also how individuals can really get the support that they need, and especially from a friend's perspective, how someone can help and help someone get the support. So I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Brittany Bronson. I am a Beverly Hills High School alumni, and I also am the founder of Space Movement, which is a support group for people living with mental health conditions. And I myself have had two personal attempts with suicide. One, when I was 19 years old, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I was put on a 5150 because of it. And another was about 2 years ago. I attempted suicide again while having a very manic episode. So from lived experience, I want to do whatever I can to help people and get the word out and, help people find support. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Now, all of your stories are so amazing. And my next question is for Ben. You talk about how scary it was for you to not know how to help your friend who was wanting to end his life. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to a teen who is concerned about a friend who is suicidal?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's the what we are after in using our platform to help people. And the biggest thing with when my friend texted me those words was I didn't have an understanding about professional resources available. It's absolutely critical to understand what you can do in that situation if that comes up. And for me, I didn't have a background about what it means when things really were getting real with him texting me that. So, I would say that it's really important to understand what these resources are. If it's calling 911, if it gets to that point, asking if there's a crisis intervention person to come along with, if that's the scenario. So I would say really just the education around the professional resources, and knowing that you can be there to listen, you can be there to help them just talk. And I think that was the biggest thing with my experience with my friend is our conversations were short and sometimes dark. And if you're the friend, it's staying with that conversation. It's about receiving that and not judging that, and then being there, continually after that. So I think that's just the advice I would give and help people with.
Well, thank you for sharing these suggestions. I mean, they can help save someone's life. And I now have two questions for Candace. It would be hard for any parent to accept that their child is suicidal. What are some signs that someone is suicidal? And what advice would you give to a parent whose child is showing signs that they are having suicidal thoughts?
It would be a very long show if I went over all the warning signs of suicide. But I think, whether you're a parent, a friend, a loved one, you're looking for those behavior changes. You know what your loved one acts like. You know what they look like. You know how they talk. So if you're really noticing just behavior changes, and that can go to both extremes, eating too much, eating too little, sleeping too much, sleeping too little, getting really angry opposed to, necessarily what you normally think of being sad. Those are the types of warning signs that you're going to look at. And my best advice for parents is to take it seriously. If you don't think it's that bad, whatever you perceive your child's going through, we're not the judge of that. What they're going through, it's their emotions. So honor their emotions and take every remark seriously and get them to help before it's too late.
Well, thank you so much, Candace. I know you have had personal experience, so I think you can relate to parents the best. Brittany, my question is for you now. It sounds like you were suffering in silence for many years. I'm sure that making the necessary steps to seek support when you are in so much pain would be very hard. What advice would you give to someone experiencing a mental health crisis and in need of help?
That's a really great question, and sometimes it's hard to answer because I feel like every individual obviously seeks support or doesn't seek support differently. And in my case, I feel like the best advice I could give someone is to really talk to that one person that you know and you love and you trust, and try and get through to them that you really are having some major crisis going on or issues. I know in my case 2 years ago, I really expressed to my sisters that I was having a really difficult time, and they were able to get me to the hospital, as soon as they called my mom and they said, we got to go. So it's really trying to find those seeking out the support for the loved ones that you know that you can trust, and getting through to them that you really need that support. But it's a really difficult thing to ask for. And it sometimes even just as Candace mentioned, showing the signs of, not sleeping enough, not eating enough, those typical things you really have to be aware of, because when your body is all sorts and not, functioning properly, it really affects your mind, and that can take you down a really spiral road. So, just finding the people that know and love you and making sure that they keep an eye on you.
That's incredible that you can watch for those signs and that you were able to reach out and ask, because clearly you're still here and we're so glad you are. Why do you think it is so hard for people to seek support when they need help?
I think when you kind of are down a rabbit hole and it's just so hard to get out and you're so stuck, you're not aware of your like surroundings and your true core feelings. So you're kind of in a mental state where it's just so dark that it's hard to really get out of. But I think that as you get older and as you really learn to find out what works best for you as an individual in your own recovery, you're able to be more aware of how you're feeling and tap into like what you need, and be able to express that and communicate that with, professionals and doctors and clinicians. And I'm really grateful in my recovery. I've been able to communicate and really verbalize what I need to my doctors and have them adjust medications when needed. And this process is a lifelong journey and it's never going to end. So it's really just kind of figuring out like what works best for you along that road.
Yeah, communication is definitely key in these vital situations. Well, thank you so much, Ben, Candace, and Brittany. I'll pass it over to Nick now.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a senior at Beverly, and I'm one of the peer counselors. It's very important for me to be able to help and connect with anyone going through their own mental health journey because of personal experiences I've gone through. And so it's an honor to be here today and chat with all you guys to do this podcast. My question's for Ben, the first one. It seems like in society, it's a lot harder for males to reach out and ask for help, even if it's to a friend. Do you agree with that? And if you do, what is some advice that you would give to people listening?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, great topic to bring up. Mental health, sort of looking inwards is difficult. And I think society puts sort of a stigma around that within males or whatever it may be to condition that to be looked at as a weakness. And I think in my own journey, my own mental health journey, it's come down to sort of understanding myself better. I think there's a lot of, pressures in society or whatever it is that lead us to want to suppress how we're feeling or any sort of emotion that comes up. So I think for me personally, it's been trying to figure out ways that you can express those feelings. And even if it's as simple as writing them down, I think there's a lot of power in that, especially for men when it's looked at as a weakness. But in reality, the more you learn and figure out how to express that emotion that you're feeling in the moment, the better you can become at responding to that. And it's just so important for people to know that they're not the only one having those emotions or that they don't have to suppress them. So I think that would be my advice is, don't look at it as something that's wrong with me. It's sort of being open about it with yourself is what I found to be helpful.
Thank you so much. And I fully agree. I was never into writing things down, but when I started, I realized how much of a help it is actually. It's a very good tip. Brittany, you talked about all the struggles that you've been going through yourself with medications and the lifelong journey that is mental health. How have you been coping with everything you've been dealing with more recently? Especially with COVID and everything that's going on?
Thank you for your question. I like to say that everyone has mental health and it's just kind of how we manage it. So for myself, during this time especially, my living situation's kind of changed, which is always hard because you're so comfortable and in a routine and wanting to be like in a safe, comfortable space. And that's changed. So that was a little difficult. But I think like the consistency of just like exercise and eating well and just, doing all the things that I need to do, taking my medication, journaling, all of these coping mechanisms that I do every single day, and just applying them and amplifying them a little bit more. I think that what has been the most challenging part for anyone, anyone living or not living with a mental health condition is like isolation and not being able to be around friends and family. So I've taken like the most extreme cautious measures to get tested and to be able to like have socially distant gatherings with people that I love and that I know that are safe. And I think that's been really helpful. And lastly, like my support group that I have weekly has been a game changer, because I haven't been in therapy for the last couple of months. And it's a really great place to feel connected and supported by loved ones who are all going through something. And it's a really special place, and it's actually every Tuesday, and you are all welcome to join anytime. But yeah, it's been a safe space for me, definitely especially during COVID. And we had to pivot from seeing each other in person to doing everything digitally online. So it's been a change, but we all go through it, right?
We do. I mean, clearly we're all doing it right now. We're trying to do our best. Candace, September is National Suicide Prevention Month. How can we help our students, and how can you help our students advocate for suicide prevention?
I mean, the number one way to advocate is to have the conversation, and not while there's a crisis, to do that just throughout the month. So like, hey, do you know the best way to talk to somebody about suicide? Ask them directly. So really just talking to each other, maybe checking in and saying like, hey, how are you? But not, how are you? Like really just emphasizing wanting to know how that person is, and trying to create that culture on campus to where it's not it's just more the norm, that it becomes the norm, that even over Zoom that you're checking in that way, and that it's no longer a passing thought, that it's not a how are you, just as really just another way to say hi, but truly caring about what people think. And the second best way is each and everybody just to educate themselves. Like, suicide is prevented by educating yourself. That's the first and most important step, in my opinion.
Definitely. And you can do that on our NormanAid website. We have so many different links that you guys can look at there. But with that, is there anything else that anyone would like to mention or say to our listeners about mental health and seeking support?
I wanted to add the importance of developing a team of support if an individual is struggling, and the way that you can find a trustworthy individual. As Brittany mentioned, it was her sister, and for me, with my friend, it was me. But I had to find other ways to support around him, since I was not with him physically. So I think it's really important to find a team of people that can support an individual in the right way, and obviously that's with the individual's permission, and figuring out what's healthy in that situation for them, so it's not as challenging, and you sort of disperse the support, but in a good way.
Ben, I want to follow up with that and ask, when you're worried about a friend and you're there to support them, especially if they're in a mental health crisis, how do you take care of yourself as well? Because it's very stressful and scary.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I have a lot of anxiety around it, and sort of how my friend is doing. And I think about, handling it the way that, in a calm way, and being able to use my breathing essentially is a way to actually, handle that. But I think, overall, telling or talking to and creating a team is really helpful in that situation, because then you don't feel like it's all about you in helping that friend. So getting to professionals is just critical, and encouraging that allows you to know that there's real help going on. So I think that's key as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think also I'd love to mention that something that I always remind myself is to really check on your strong friends. Like, there are so many people that are silently suffering and don't talk about it and don't say it. And for me in particular, like, I was a senior at Beverly, and I was the captain of this varsity team and I was the president of ASB, but I was hurting every single day and putting like a mask on, and no one really knew. Maybe you knew, Miss Norman, but other than that, like, you really need to check on your friends who are showing that they're okay on the outside, because internally, I think that everyone is struggling with something, especially during this time.
Yes,
Thank you,
incredible.
Brittany. That's really good advice. I'm curious too, because you're right. If people saw you in the hallways, you always had a smile and you were very active and involved on campus. What advice would you give to teachers? I mean, we talked a lot about some warning signs, but you were in the classroom with these teachers every day. What do you think they could have done to connect, or questions that they could have asked so that they could have been more aware of your mental state and other students as well?
Well, I think that it's hard because you're only with your teachers like 40 minutes a day, so they don't really get to like observe. But I would say if there's like a specialty teacher that you're with, or a coach or something, to be able to have that rapport with them and that relationship to like, seek out your own support. And then for them, like, I mean, just simple questions like, are you okay? But like really diving into it and being like, no, but like, are you really okay? Like, what's going on? Because that's such a surface question. Like, how are you doing? How are you? And we always answer with good, I'm fine. But then like really taking that extra initiative to like deep dive into it and be like, no, well, Ben, I see that you're not your normal self. Like, what's going on? And just taking that extra further step, I think, is like super helpful. And just knowing that someone cares, like, just even more than just an inch about you,
Candace, is there any other advice or anything you want to share to our listeners?
Yeah, there is. So I want to just kind of piggyback off of what Brittany had said. I think it's very important that you look at your strongest friends. I flew under the radar as very, very high functioning, but I have severe generalized anxiety disorder. And social anxiety as well. And so most people don't think that because of what I do and how I try to help people. And I even flew under my own radar and really didn't get properly diagnosed until my 20s, even though it ran in my family. And then with teachers, I've had classrooms that were able to transform in no time at all by spending a minute or two every morning with just a few moments of silence, or the teacher just reminding them that they can come and talk to them at any time. And in the matter of a few weeks, it can make such a big difference in how you can transform your classroom. And then lastly, we didn't touch a lot on anxiety, but I know that that is a very relevant mental health condition pre-COVID. So we know it's much worse post-COVID. And for anybody out there that's a little bit concerned about yourself, or maybe you're worried about people calling you dramatic, anxiety is very, very real. And the American Association of Pediatrics has finally recommended that all girls get screened by the time they're 13 years old. Recommendation is going into full effect as of the first of the year. And that recommendation was made before COVID. So you're not alone. This is common, and the more we can talk about it, the more we can make sure everybody knows that they're not alone. So thank you.
Candace, I really think you're such an inspiration, because I remember just working with you on different events and you talking about being anxious, and you fought through those feelings and you got up on stage and you shared your message and your passion. And I've just seen over the years how much more comfortable you are. And I think that's a perfect reminder of exposure, how when we're anxious, we tend to want to just avoid what makes us nervous. And that by the more we try and challenge ourselves, that we can work through those anxieties. And I really think, I see you now speaking in front of large audience and you've gotten so comfortable. So I think you're a true inspiration and a reminder of hope that we can work through the things that make us anxious.
Absolutely. And for anybody scared, like exposure therapy, like Allie just said, it is the best thing you can do for anxiety. So if you can step out of that comfort zone, even just a hair each day, you will slowly over time see large improvements in your overall levels of anxiety.
Thank you so much to our 3 guest speakers and peer counselors. I know that your stories will give our students and families strength to seek help, and it will save lives. By erasing the stigma around seeking support, our hope is to encourage our listeners to ask for support for yourself as well as for your peers. Please join us next month for our discussion on substance misuse prevention, featuring special guest Sam Baptista, who's a former professional skateboarder, and he will share his shocking personal story. And make sure that you follow us on Instagram at BHHS NormanAid for daily tips on all things wellness. Be safe and make today well lived.